as they say, you can only take other people as far as you've personally gone. So if you haven't done the inner work, you can't really help other people go to those same depths, really.
Welcome to WaveMakers, where we're transforming Workday careers one real conversation at a time. I'm Carla Corley, here with Nikki Uchin. This podcast is a continuation of what we've always tried to do at Corner Office Consultants, helping others in the ecosystem grow, lead, shift, and figure out what's next. Or as we've always said, helping you ride the Workday wave.
It's always been important to us to keep the focus on the bigger picture, your career, your goals, your real-life decisions. And WaveMakers is just another way for us to keep doing that.
And that's why we're so excited to kick this off with Keith Bitikofer. If you've been in the ecosystem for a while, or even a little bit, you may already know Keith. He's been a consultant, a leader, author, coach. He's done a little bit of everything and is a wealth of knowledge.
We cover a lot in this episode: career identity, coaching, reinvention, and what it looks like to lead a career that keeps shifting. And this phrase, "you get to choose," might end up meaning more than you think. We're glad you're here for the first one, so let's get into it.
We're here with Keith Bitikofer to start our first ever WaveMakers podcast. Keith, we're so glad to have you with us, and thanks for getting this kicked off with this.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So excited for your new WaveMakers podcast. You have so much great content that you put on LinkedIn, and we've had many conversations over the years. So excited to be a part of your first episode.
No, I thank you. And actually, I was going back and thinking about when you and I first met. I think we got connected in 2019, but really where we started kind of having conversations was more in 2022 when you were selected as one of the Workday knowledge experts with our compensation survey. And that's when we really started having a lot more conversations.
Yeah, and that was a surprise for me as well, in the sense that I never set out to be a, quote, influencer. I was a part of a mastermind, and they challenged us for new entrepreneurs. They challenged us to be on social media. So I started posting and was trying to do 3 posts a week, which initially was totally intimidating. And I just started and kept at it. And I don't know if it was the first year. No, I think it was the second, after it was a year and a half or something, that I showed up on the salary report and that you had done. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
Well, obviously people saw you because you were chosen by the ecosystem. So I love that though.
Yep. And I was going to, and just to jump in, obviously you had a story to tell, or many stories to tell. And that is something that we are sharing, all the time, is how important that story is, right? How to stand out, be unique, differentiate yourself, especially with the AI tools out there. So I thought that'd be a great place for us to start, Keith, and learning a little bit more about your story and how you even got started in Workday.
Yeah, glad to tell you. So I've been in technology for 30 years and have been in IT roles, as well as I've done some operation roles, led at a nonprofit for 6 years. I was over even our budgeting and finance. And so I've done a lot of different roles, and all of that kind of came together when I was working with a global nonprofit. And in 2014, I'd been overseas in Africa working with that organization, came back to the United States. That's asked to go to the headquarters in Orlando, Florida, and they wondered if I would lead their Workday project. And they knew I'd been a consultant with other Microsoft Great Plains and some other packages in the past. And so I got into the office. I started August 4th, I think, and they had signed the contracts with Workday at the end of July. And they handed me the contracts and they said, "What do you think? Do you want to lead this?" And I was like, well, this contract is a boilerplate. We're way more complicated than this, but sure, let's do it. And so we went live in July 4th of 2015. And so this year it'll be 10 years since they went live. And
nice.
I spent yeah, that's crazy. And I was there for another 6 years. So I was at that organization for 10 years total, but the 6 years of that was working with Workday, was ultimately leading their teams through multiple transitions, in the sense of we started with just HR. And so I was the HRIS director. Then we did finance, and our HR team started to get upset with our team, our Workday team, because they're like, you're our team. Why are you spending so much time with finance? Like, put us wherever you want. We're supporting Workday. And leadership said we're doing finance. So now we're doing finance. And so they moved our team into IT. And then we did a global rollout. Then we did Prism, and we did multiple Extend apps. And just, it was such an opportunity to work with all this new stuff that Workday was releasing. And it had a huge impact in our organization, and being able to meet needs, and especially once you added Extend in there, being able to meet unique needs to that organization. And then in 2020, left that organization, became an independent contractor, and then joined up with a group of other ones to form EMD, Enterprise Market Desk. Continued to support that global organization part-time as a contractor for a couple of years. And even now, almost 5 years later, still talk with some people from that group about every other week, just being a part of that. So love that I'm still connected to that nonprofit. Sure. My heart is certainly there, but now I get to help a lot of other customers as well as a contractor and as a part of a organization that EMD that is now have been doing staff aug, post-production support. And now we're also doing implementations for smaller companies. So
fantastic.
Really,
that is a journey.
Amazing ride.
That is a journey. I love the way that being exposed to technology and how it's changed just the trajectory. Obviously that's when you happen to be in a company, someone says it's slug, but you happen to be in a company that is implementing one of the hottest software, out there. Right. And then it just absolutely changes, where you go. It happened with me with Oracle. And so as you were saying that, I'm just sitting here nodding my head because it was reminding me a lot of that. And now actually even talking about another pivot, now you built the systems, you led the teams, you supported companies and helped other companies. And now you pivot into coaching. What made you even think of that? You and I've had some conversations about it.
Right.
What is it that kind of drove you to that decision? And really, what did that look like?
Yeah. So I guess a couple things. One is I'm a teacher at heart, and I love to figure things out, and I love to go deep dive into the various topics and then share what I've learned and help other people navigate that. And one way that looks is I've been through multiple technology waves in the last 30 years, obviously. And each of those steps, I learn things and share it with others. And then I'm on to the next thing and the next thing. And along the way, I do a lot of career coaching. I mean, I've unofficially done it for most of my career in terms of I had staff that reported to me, or I had college graduate friends or friends, children's of friends that were like, can you talk to this person? And, they're trying to figure something out. Like, oh yeah, we'll shoot some ideas around. And one of the things that got interesting is as I transitioned to doing consulting again and in the Workday space, and I was helping managers that, HRS managers that were responsible for Workday or whatever their title happened to be. And one of the things that I recognized is I could help them with a lot of Workday things, with prioritization, with building their support models and ticketing systems and all the things. And there was times where we'd still get stuck and they were stuck. And I was trying to figure out how to help them. And I realized I don't have tools to go beyond this. I can help you on the business stuff, but I didn't have kind of these internal wiring, rewiring, personal development tools. And I had questions about my own limitations and mindset and things like that. And why do I think about things the way I do? And so that led me down the path of going through a 7-month program to become a certified life coach. And, it was like 10 hours a week and we'd get exposed to new things, inner child, all kinds of wild stuff and things that as a business person, I never thought I would be having these conversations. And yet it was transformative to me and going through that process. And as they say, you can only take other people as far as you've personally gone. So if you haven't done the inner work, you can't really help other people go to those same depths, really. And when I say depths, I can say I'm trauma aware. I'm not a trauma therapist, but I'm aware of those, recognizing those triggers and saying, I can take it to this. I can help you to this point. Anything beyond this, you need a certified trauma therapist or, to deal with that deeper stuff. But part of the recognition, and not to go off on trauma, but part of the recognition is there's a lot of things that either happened to us as children, happened to us earlier in our careers in terms of bosses we had, or we got laid off, we got terminated, we got some traumatic thing happened to us. And that has created fears that keep us from stepping into what we now have the gifts and abilities to do. And I help people work through those.
Wow.
Somebody described it as, she was like, well, think of it like a Venn diagram. You have one circle or oval that is all your workday experience and knowledge, and you have this other that's personal coaching, personal development, and they overlap, and you can help people with both. And that's exactly what I need, was what this one person said. And
nice.
so it's
Nice.
fun because I met with somebody today that was a marketing person, had nothing to do with Workday, and I was coaching them. But there's all these overlaps. And so it's just fun to kind of go wherever somebody needs help.
Absolutely.
See, here we thought we were going to be talking Workday, and we're talking inner child. But it's true. It actually, I mean, it does all relate, and that impacts everything else. And I'm officially, so I am out of my realm here because I am not an official coach. You two are. So as far as coaching and discussions on that, Nikki, did you want to talk with Keith on some stuff?
Absolutely. And definitely understand how sometimes it just happens naturally, right? And coaching myself, that ties into recruiting quite often, and also being a former teacher. So everything you're saying, I'm shaking my head going, absolutely. I completely understand. So actually, I do have some questions, Keith. And then obviously, as you mentioned, you spoke with somebody today, and you're always talking to Workday professionals. Are there some roadblocks or common crossroads that people are sharing with you about their career that keeps popping up maybe in conversations?
So you can go all different directions with this.
Okay.
A couple, one of them off the top of my head is that, we often talk about how no one person knows all of Workday. And I did a post about that a couple of weeks ago, and so many people responded because we all feel the pressure to be the person who knows all of Workday.
Right.
Because a lot of customers, when they want to hire somebody, they think they can hire somebody that knows all of Workday. And when you tell them no one knows all of Workday, they don't believe you because they don't have the context to understand, oh, it does all these things. And so a common thing is that I have people who they get hired by a company to support all of Workday for their company, whether that's HCM or HCM and finance, whatever it is. And initially they're very excited because they know it's going to give them an opportunity to learn a lot of different areas of Workday. After a year or two, they're overwhelmed and burned out. And then they come to me and like, what do I need to do? This isn't working for me. And then we talk about what their options are and kind of how they navigate the next step. Do they stay there longer, and what does that look like? Or is it time to exit? And if it's time to exit, what does that look like?
Sure.
Oftentimes one of the phrases that I use a lot is you get to choose. And that's more from the coaching side of me, but that's kind of some of my own story, is that so often we live with this narrative of we're trying to keep everybody around us happy, whether it's our kids, our spouse, our coworkers, our boss. And as long as they have what they need, we're okay. But at the end of the day, if we're not getting what we need, what is life-giving to us, then we're not going to be able to bring our best to our work, to our family, to our children, to our environment. And so I have to remind people, another way I ask it is, are you allowed to have needs? And there's a lot of, I coach a lot of women, and there's a lot of women that are like, it kind of stops them dead because they're used to meeting the needs of their kids and their spouse and their boss. But when you say, are you allowed to have needs? It's okay. If you're allowed to have needs, you need to have the courage to ask other people to help you get those needs met.
Sure.
And as an employee, part of that is going to your environment and saying, here's what I would like to do. Here's what I'm good at. Here's what I want to gain experience in. And is that organization willing to partner with you, help you grow in those areas? Or like, no, that's not what we need. We need these other things. Like, okay, great. You can need those other things, but I need this. And
I need this.
the
Exactly.
blessing of the Workday environment is there's so many different opportunities within your current skill set, or even pushing that skill set in the sense of maybe you're a consultant and you're looking to go work for a customer. Maybe you're a customer working with a customer, considering becoming a consultant. There's just so many options that if where you're at currently is not a good fit for where you want to go with your career, you get to choose.
That's powerful. Yeah. And I was going to just also say is it sounds like, having an organization that actually will listen to what that balance looks like or what that next path looks like is essential in that. And as you're mentioning, if it's just not in alignment or you don't feel that support, then it may be time to make that shift and move on to a different organization.
Yeah. And part of it is having the courage to ask. And sometimes is even having the courage to ask yourself, what do I want? What do I need?
Right.
And then once you know yourself, what do I want? What do I need? Then it's having the conversations with people around you to say, is that something you can do in your environment? Or if you're a manager of a team at a customer or a consulting company, are you asking your team members that? Are you creating a space where people want to be because they have the opportunity to learn, they have the opportunity to partner and be a part of a fun team, and that's having an impact on the organization and all those things? You get to create the culture for that environment. And it's, do you want to be intentional about that? Because all of this takes being intentional, both whether it's your personal career or whether it's managing a team and the careers of the people that are around you.
I'm even thinking, we're talking about existing, where you are right now, but even on the front end, interviewing and, excited and things like that, but setting expectations then. I had a recruiting business coach years ago. And one of the things that he said is you can't get mad if you haven't set expectations and had agreement on that. And so it's kind of taking that advice. And the same thing when you're looking, if it looks too good to be real, or even as you're onboarding and you're starting, sitting down with the team or the management or whatever and saying, okay, what does success look like? Are we in agreement on this? And because this is where we're going. And then, verifying that along the way and not just assuming, they're going to bring someone in. I'm not going to be, doing it all.
The only one.
All that. Exactly. A team of one.
That's headed for burnout. No doubt about that. We want you to do HCM, fins, adaptive, and throw some payroll in there too. I don't know how that could lead to some burnout.
Yeah. Well, and part of that too is, and I was talking to a Workday customer today that's going to go live in a month and a half. And I was saying, okay, when you think about your support model, you kind of have these two extremes of, are you going to be fully self-sufficient where you don't need anybody else? And what does that look like? How many people and modules are you supporting and all that? To the other extreme, which is you're going to use managed services, and then and a partner organization is going to provide all your support. Most people are not at one end of the extreme or the other. They're somewhere in the middle. And so you as an organization need to define where you want to be in that. And then as the team that, if you're the one person or even part of a team, you decide, okay, is this an environment that I can be a part of and enjoy this and keep up with all the things they're asking me to do? And, in the case that I was talking about today, it's like, okay, they have a few people, but there's certain things they're not going to have enough knowledge in when they go live. So they want some extra help with payroll. They want some extra help with benefits, whatever it might be, that are going to be outside help. So that gives you a way to balance the weight that the internal team is carrying because they have outside resources. And so that's, to Carla, to your point, when you're going in and interviewing and you're saying, okay, ask, what is your support model? You've got all these modules. Well, are you expecting one person to know all of this? Or do you have an AMS contract or some independent contractors available or something so that it's a realistic support load?
Yep. It's
the key thing with that, that I picked up from that is that you're actually proactively having a conversation on what the support model is going to look like, as opposed to after going live and, oh, we went live and now we're done.
Yeah.
Or
You
during
know,
the
so-
interview, you're being proactive and they're telling you all these things. And then you start asking strategic questions back.
Absolutely.
That's true.
And that kind of sets some expectations. Oh, do you want that type of feedback? Because if you hire me, that's what you're going to get.
Ooh, that's
Because
good.
if you don't want that type of feedback, then I'm not a fit for this organization.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you want me to do. Or, sometimes when you start, you don't have enough context. You went and took the training. You're now certified. Yay, you know this module. And somebody says, can you do this? And you're like, yeah, I can do that. And you go in and do that. And then 6 months later, they're upset it doesn't work. And you're like, well, you didn't tell me that you wanted to do all these other things. If I would have known that. So then you learn, maybe it's not always the best thing to just do what they tell me to do. I should ask context
Exactly.
and make sure it's the best way to do it.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a good segue, I think, for the next focus, which is kind of where we are with the Workday landscape.
Yeah.
I believe that you are 11 years in,
Yeah.
close to that. And we're 13. Wow. Can't believe
Wow.
that.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And to you as well. So, there have been some changes out in the ecosystem. And I was just, curious, besides the obvious with the new products and AI and so on, what have you seen, Keith, the last couple of years as far as how the ecosystem has changed a little bit or shifted the last few years?
Outside of the obvious.
There's lots of things that come to mind. I think, you got Workday Extend. And so there was a lot of things that in the past you just couldn't do. And I mean, Workday didn't have functionality to do that. And now you have all this functionality that you can build into Workday Extend. And now with Built on Workday, you now have Workday has built the deployment infrastructure for Workday Marketplace so that a company can make an app and goes through the approval process and then gets listed on the marketplace and somebody can buy that app. And then the company that sold that app can then push it to, updates and things like that out to 50 tenants or, however many customers they have. And so that's going to be, we saw this play out if you're familiar with Salesforce. Salesforce, has had their app hub for 10 years and there's all kinds of functionality that was built once they opened that because again, a company like Salesforce only has so many programmers. And then when they suddenly open that ecosystem up, well, Workday's now doing the same thing. Workday corporate only has so many programmers. And now they open this up to a whole bunch of more developers who have problems they've wanted to solve or have seen in the marketplace and are now saying, oh, this is a missing piece. I'm going to build this and let's fill that gap. And at DevCon, they announced, I think it's called Clear Sky, which is where Workday says, here are areas that are clear skies in the sense that we're not going to add functionality in this particular area. So we would love for partners to build apps to flesh out and add functionality in those areas. Because one of the things that I was afraid of, and I've worked with Workday Extend since 2018. So we were very early into that. And I have thought for years of apps that I would like to build, but I was afraid, well, what if I build that and then somebody else builds it? And now we're both trying to sell it. Well, I put all this money and effort into this and is it going to go away? And there's still a chance that somebody else will build an app and they're going to build it from their perspective and for their target market group. But the fact that Workday is saying, okay, we're not going to go here. We would love people to go there. At least I'm not competing against Workday for that space. And Workday can say, we don't want to go there. If you want to go there, we'll support you in going there. So, that's a really cool thing to kind of see how that plays out. And I think that's going to open doors for Workday to sell into areas that they just couldn't go because there was a couple key things that they were missing. And now either that gap's already going to be filled or somebody can recognize that gap through the sales process and say, oh, we can build something to fix that for you. And then suddenly Workday is a viable option in an area where it wasn't a viable option.
Interesting.
Keith, is there obviously you said clear skies, so there's a way that you can see that you're not going to compete with Workday. But what about, people that are developing with each other? Or people kind of saying, is there some kind of tracking or something going, we're going down this path? Or is it just everybody else for their own? Or
So when you're building apps, and I'm not an official Built on Workday partner, we're in the process of becoming that. So we're having those conversations. So I can't fully speak to it like some other people that are much more deeper into it. But I can say that there are conversations that you have with Workday, and Workday is tracking at some level what other people are doing. And they don't know about things that people are doing that they haven't told Workday about yet. But there is an approval process that you have to go through. And so there is a certain level of conversation, and a lot of the partners kind of know what different people are working on. And so that at least helps with trying to decide whether it's worth the investment and whether there's a good chance to get that out or not.
No, it's been fun. They're definitely seeing some of the new things that are coming out and just so creative. And you can tell that the people that have built it, they're really excited about it as well. Obviously a value add, but it's neat to scroll through LinkedIn and see some of the new things that are out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's coming out at the same time as all this AI functionality is coming out. And so that's a really interesting kind of crossover to have both of those happening at the same time, because these new things are coming out to meet a niche, but they're also including AI components that if we'd have been looking 5 years ago, and if this would have existed, we still would have been creating new functionality.
True.
But now we would be trying to add AI here. And because we're doing both at the same time, it's an interesting dynamic to watch.
Well, and I think that's a good segue as far as with all these changes that are happening, products, tools, AI, that's probably going to hurt someone's career shift and timeline. Typically we see 3 to 5 years where someone may shift their career. With this sped up a little bit more, it may be 2 to 3. But curious, Keith, as far as these changes are happening, where do you see some of the career shifts within Workday? Where do you see maybe some trends?
So part of it is we don't know what we don't know yet.
True.
It's really hard to say what's going to happen in terms of AI. I listen to a lot of things about AI, and I'm experimenting and trying to leverage it as much as I can in various, and not just kind of, okay, what's the AI tool within Workday, but what are AI tools? And so it's like in every area, we're kind of looking at how do we optimize. Josh Bershin at the beginning of the year started talking about the rise of the super worker, where there are positions that are going to get replaced by AI. There's other things that are going to get supercharged by AI. And so it's that super worker concept that his comment at the beginning of the year was, you're going to see people that the beginning of the year, these two people were at the same place. At the end of the year, one of them is still at the same place, doing their jobs exactly the same. The other one is trying to leverage AI tools in every area possible, and now is exponentially more effective at doing their job. While the first one is still saying, nobody's told me what to do with AI. There's a lot of AI companies that are saying, okay, you as a company need to be training your people on AI and all that, which is great. I think that should happen. But again, you get to choose with your own career. Are you going to wait for people to tell you what to do and tell you how to use this? Or are you going to get in there and figure it out? And in the Workday space, we're in a space where, we've done 2 annual releases a year and new functionality even coming out in between that. And that's normal for people in the Workday space. It's just now we have another piece, which is AI, some of which is within Workday and others is outside of Workday. And the question is, how do we leverage that to strengthen our ability to get things done, and recognizing, don't always trust what ChatGPT says, play with it, but validate it. And I constantly am asking ChatGPT Workday questions. And I'm amazed over the last year and a half how much it's improved, but it still isn't 100% accurate. Right. The other day, I was asking it about proxy access, and I said, so what tenants can you do proxy access in? And it said, any tenant. I'm like, no, you can't do proxy access in prod. And it's like, oh, you're right. It's like, no, you have no idea.
I love how it's when you correct it, it's, oh, you're right.
Yes. And there's, if you're using ChatGPT or any of these other ones, please go into the settings. Now you have to be using the paid version. Please go into the settings and say, do not update the model with my conversation. Well,
Right.
we would
I
love
saw
from a
you put that
Workday
out there.
standpoint to have the Workday stuff constantly getting better. There's personal things you're processing about your career and about other things that you don't really want to have out there in the trained model. So be careful.
Yeah. I know I always refer to good AI and bad AI, and part of that is just the usage of it. But there are some amazing things that can be done with it.
Yeah,
And
for
even just
sure.
outside of, talking Workday, but just in using it for careers and that other people have been saying, it just really levels the playing field. And, you think about where the gig economy's headed. Now, it used to be that you needed a big team or all these things your team can be agents and things like that. Larger companies, obviously, they have many more things that they have to deal with before they can incorporate AI in their company. It's neat to see kind of the things that are being developed and what it's unfolded for people and what people are able to do. But then it also, on the other hand, the bad AI is kind of adding all this noise and, junk
And part of it
out there as
is
well. And that could be other users, right? So,
we're technologists. If you're in the Workday space, you're a technologist. And so we as technologists have the opportunity to help people figure out how to best leverage AI.
exactly.
And recognizing the positive sides and the negative sides, but so many other people are overwhelmed with the speed of this that's coming out. And again, if you've been in the Workday space, you're used to this speed of things changing. It's part of our life. It's been a part of our life from the beginning.
Yep.
And that's honestly part of what I love about the Workday space is that in the past, I implemented what I call set it and forget it systems.
Yes.
And we would get it up and running and you'd set it and we would say, oh, well, we'll do that other thing in phase 2. And we all knew there was never going to be a phase 2. And there's reasons for that, which is with the past technologies. And here it's constant iteration. And, from a Workday standpoint, and AI is going to be the same way. And so I'm saying this from a standpoint of it's easy to be intimidated by this change. And I'm saying normalize that this is already what you're doing. It's just a new thing for you to learn and for you to help your companies leverage. Now, the question is whether the company you're working for wants to leverage it. Because I'm now starting to hear multiple people I'm talking to in the Workday space that are saying, when we interview, one of our questions to a potential new employer is, what's your attitude about AI? Because if you're going to say, and there's a lot of companies are like, no, we don't trust AI. We're afraid of the risk it's going to put to us as an organization. We're going to wait 3 to 4 years before we take anything seriously.
Oh, wow.
And these people are saying, I don't want to work in that situation.
Exactly.
Because I want to work for somebody organization who's not going to take unnecessary risk, obviously, but is going to look to leverage AI.
Sure.
And it's going to impact your career if you're working for a company that is avoiding using AI.
Nope,
That's why I would say interview is a two-way street, right? They're interviewing you to see if you're going to fit the organization, but you got to interview them too to see if their organization
is a fit for you,
if it's an alignment. So it's a balance act.
For sure.
Thanks so much for tuning into the first episode of WaveMakers. And a big thanks to Keith for starting the show off right. You could find links to connect with him and to check out his books in the show notes. This podcast is just one more way we're continuing what we've always believed in at Corner Office Consultants, showing up for the people in this ecosystem with insight, support, and real talk that helps you move your career forward. We'll be sharing 2 episodes a month, and we'd love for you to be part of it. If there's a topic you want us to cover or someone you think we should feature, just reach out to me or Carla. You can connect with us, and we'll include those links on the podcast notes as well. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss what's next. We've got some great conversations coming up, and we'll be rolling out even more ways to transform your career soon. Thanks again for listening, and as always, we're here to help you ride the Workday wave.